You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. 2 weeks from today, we'll be in Nashville at SEC Football Media Days. Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers will go first on the opening day at SEC Football Media Days. And the questions asked to start year two will be dramatically different than they were in year one. Year one, there was a lot of, quite honestly, there was a lot of people mocking Brian Kelly for saying family. There were people questioning the cultural fit. And the thought about this team was that they might be lucky to get to 500 a year ago. Well, fast forward a year, LSU beats Alabama. They win the SEC West. Jaden Daniels has the second best odds to win the Heisman Trophy, and LSU is a national champion contender, and many are going to pick LSU to win the SEC West, and why wouldn't you? They did it a year ago, and the schedule actually flips in their favor a bit. But before they hit SEC Media Days, Brian Kelly sat down with Blake Topmeyer of USA Today and Gannett News Services. Now, this interview apparently was done in June, but they just published it today. And there's a lot in there that you'll find interesting. Speaking of the family bite, and by the way, it's just a transcript of the interview. The question was, do you actually say family that way? And when did you realize it was going to become a thing? Kelly's response, I do actually say family. Family. And I think it's got to be a cross-section of some Boston Midwestern accent. He says, I'm a mutt, it's kind of the meme. I'm good for getting memes. I don't know. I would have to be really calculating to come up with a Southern accent on my own. That's a good way of putting it. But the thing that you're probably going to find the most interesting in this interview, if you do go read the transcript of it, he was asked about the missing ingredient. He said, if this team is better than last year's, why will it be? What's the missing ingredient? He says depth. And Kelly says, quote, we're still not there yet. You can't take 13 guys from the transfer portal on defense and not have a red flag. This program is still not at the level of depth necessary to withstand injuries and things you're going to have to withstand in the SEC. We need to take 2 or 3 transfers to top off the tank once in a while. So his point is, you can't build around the portal with 13 guys. You need to have your roster and then supplement with 2 or 3 guys from the portal. By the way, I'm not so sure I necessarily completely agree with that. I'm not saying he's wrong, but I think we are all still learning about how the transfer portal era is going to go. And it may be more of that you're not going to have guys that stay and develop over 3 years. If they don't play in a year or two, they leave, and you are going to build your team largely with the portal. And I think that's a very real possibility. But the biggest question that everybody has is when? When can LSU realistically compete for a national championship? Now, we have all had this conversation over the last week, haven't we? If it's with your family members, if it's us here on radio or on Twitter, message boards, coworkers, we've all had the conversation. Man, Kim Mulkey did it in year 2. Jay Johnson did it in year 2. Is Brian Kelly next? Right? We've all heard that conversation. Can Brian Kelly be the next to do it in year 2? Now, the short answer to the question of can he is yes. You've got a 5th-year senior at quarterback. You're returning your top 6 offensive linemen. You have got a bevy of running backs now, including adding Logan Diggs from Notre Dame. You return Mason Taylor at tight end. Look at the talent you've got at receiver with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Kyron Lacey and all the Aaron Anderson coming in, Shelton Sampson, a 5-star. You've got tons of talent on offense. That's not even a question. Defense, Mekhi Wingo's back. You're getting Mason Smith back off of injury. You brought in some key transfers like Braden Swimson and Ovia Gofu, Omar Spates in the middle. Did I fail to mention Harold Perkins? Of course, you've got veterans still here like Major Burns and Greg Brooks. You added 4 transfer cornerbacks that are all more talented than the guys you had a year ago. The guys you had a year ago maybe had more experience. A guy like Jarek Bernard-Converse, who had 50 starts in his career. But you got more talent with your corners this year. So point being, can you do it this year? Sure, especially with the schedule rotating in your favor. Auburn, Florida, A&M, they all come to Baton Rouge. Your road games in the league are the Mississippi schools. Yeah, you got to play Alabama on the road. That's tough, and I'm not saying that's going to be easy. But we've gone through it. LSU right now, according to odds makers, is going to be favored in every game except Alabama. So can they? Sure they can. But what does Brian Kelly say? The question was, when do you feel like this program will be ready to contend seriously for a national championship? Again, when do you feel like this program will be ready to contend seriously for a national championship? Brian Kelly's answer, quote, "We need another year of recruiting. One more really good year on both sides of the ball, I think, puts us in a position where I think year 3, the consistency piece, the depth of our program, the messaging, all the things we do on a day-to-day basis, puts us in position to compete for a championship. Year 2, the foundation is in place. I think there's a really good confidence within the group. We've got good players. There's some holes. There's a little air coming out of the tire here and there. I think we've kind of patched most of it, but I think year 3 is probably the year where I'll feel in terms of building a program we had enough time to really put the pieces together." It's not me saying it. It's Brian Kelly saying it. He needs another year to really feel like he's got the pieces in place to win a national championship. Now, that shouldn't sit well with you, by the way. And that's not to say they're not going to try like hell to win it this year. And it's not to say that they won't have the opportunity to win it this year. I will say this. 2024, there are going to be some real challenges. Namely, you're going to lose 3 offensive linemen. You're going to lose your quarterback. You're going to lose a ton of those running backs. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Kyron Lacey, likely all gone as well. Mason Smith's going to be off to the NFL. Omar Spates, Ovia Gofu, those are 1-year mercenaries. Greg Brooks will be gone as well. You understand my point? Like, however it goes, you are going to lose a ton of production from this 2023 team. And think about the schedule in 2024. You open up against USC in Vegas. UCLA comes to Baton Rouge as well. So 2 Power 5 non-conference opponents. Yes, you get Bama in Baton Rouge, but you're at Auburn, at Florida, at A&M. I mean, that's going to be a real, legitimate. Oklahoma is going to come to Baton Rouge. Remember, we saw that last week. That is going to be a real, legitimate, and sincere fight in 2024. With that schedule, with all you lose. So maybe those building blocks, pieces, and foundations are in place. But this is actually the team against this schedule that's more primed to make that run. Because this schedule works in your favor. And this roster works in your favor. And it's the same reason why, if you'd ask Kim Mulkey, actually all throughout that season, we'd listen to Kim Mulkey every Tuesday or Wednesday morning when she was on off the bench with Hester and T-Bob. And time and again, what would she say? We haven't won anything yet. Haven't won anything. We've won some games. We haven't won anything. Are we really that good? Don't know. Look at what happened at the end of the season. Why? Alexis Morris, Angel Reese. Other players, don't misunderstand me. It was a team, but your 2 stars are both transfers. Jay Johnson, year 2. Last year, you didn't even host a regional. This year, you win the national championship. A lot of the same players. Great players. Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Jordan Thompson, Gavin Dugas, Cade Beloso, Josh Pearson, Braden Jobert, Hayden Travinsky, Alex Milazzo. A lot of the same players. What was the difference? Paul Skeens, Thatcher Hurd, Tommy White. Transfers. So, I look at Brian Kelly's team in 2024 and I go, okay, well, where were you deficient a year ago? Well, you were really thin on the defensive line. You had a 3-man rotation to tackle. Did they go address that this offseason? Damn right they did. They added 4 interior defensive linemen out of the portal to supplement behind Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo and those guys on the interior. You added Ovie Oghoufo. You added Braden Swinson. You added guys on the edge. You added a fifth-year senior in Omar Spates in the middle of your defense that probably is going to be a 100-tackle guy. Where you were you had really good numbers on the offensive line, and you went and added Mason Lunsford, another guy who started, basically 2 seasons worth of games during his time in the Big Ten of Maryland. You've accelerated the process because of the transfer portal. So I'm certain in Brian Kelly's mind, he's thinking, really, traditionally, it's year 3. Year 3 is when you've laid the foundation, you've had enough of a recruiting, you had 3 recruiting classes to where it's your roster, it's your players, it's your culture, it's all that stuff. And historically, I completely agree with that. I mean, Les Miles won his championship in year 3 at LSU. And Nick won it in year 4 at LSU. There's a lot of reason to look at that and go, yeah, Nick Saban at Bama, 2009, year 3 was his first one at Bama. So, yeah, there's a lot of reason to look and say it's probably year 3 where you hit that point of scale. But what we don't know, because there isn't enough of a sample size yet, is how much the transfer portal allows you to accelerate that process. We've seen it in one-year one-offs. Look at Sonny Dykes. Sonny Dykes, last year at TCU, played for the national championship his first year at TCU. He inherited a 5-7 football team and went to the national championship game. I mean, Mel Tucker, his first year at Michigan State, used the portal to turn his team into a New Year's Six team. It's possible to do it Brian Kelly did it very quickly. Back-to-back sub-500 seasons at LSU to 10-win season. How? Well, you went and got Jaden Daniels out of the transfer portal. And you went and got Jarek Bernard-Converse and Mekhi Gardner out of the transfer portal. And Joe Fouché and Greg Brooks out of the transfer portal. That's how you did it. And that's how you can do it again this year. And it's why, if more of those questions are answered to the affirmative than the negative, and there aren't many on this team, where he says there's a little air coming out of the tire here and there. Every team's got that. Every team has air coming out of the tire here or there. I mean, Georgia's got to answer those questions, don't they? I mean, the big question about Georgia under Kirby all those years, their defense was really good, but the offense couldn't get on track. Well, they bring in Todd Monken, and they figured it out. Well, now Bennett's gone and Monken's gone. What does that offense look like? I don't know. Is Mike Bobo and Carson Beck the magic elixir? Maybe. Maybe not. It's a question. Look at Alabama. They were so unsettled at quarterback coming out of spring, they had to go get a backup at Notre Dame that they think might be the guy. Maybe, maybe not. Played a handful of 500 games that year, and you wound up winning 3 of them because of Bryce Young. Bryce Young's gone. How's that going to look now? I don't know. Every team's got questions. As Brian Kelly said it, there's a little air coming out of the tire here and there. Every team's got a little air coming out of the tire. Who can patch the hole quickly enough? LSU's in a great position to do it. He's saying year 3, but everybody's standing here shouting, is it Brian Kelly's turn? Yeah. Got history on your side as well. Every 4 years. 03, 07, 2011, you were undefeated, lost in the championship game. 2015, you were number 1 in the first CFP standings, if you remember. You were number 1 of those first standings. Fournette, they had his name already engraved on the Heisman. And then you went to Tuscaloosa, and he ran for 30 yards, and you wound up losing a couple of games down the stretch. And then 2019, 4 years later, 2019, you win the Natty, and now here you are in 2023. It follows that pattern. And there's a reason Brian Kelly's been able to accelerate it. And yeah, you should have that expectation this year. And the more and more years of the transfer portal we see, the more and more we're going to become accustomed to seeing, or we're going to learn about what is realistic. What are these expectations because of things like NIL and the portal? And he's maximized them over 2 years. So you're right to have that expectation. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.